to everything, and I'm like, I can't cancel anything here. And then I almost canceled my therapy session. I was like, nope, that is staying in there because I need
Not
therapy.
today, Satan.
Just do therapy while you're at the dentist.
So, took my therapist for a little walk to the beach, actually right before this session. And I was like, this is good for mental health. This is what I need this week. Even though I don't really have time for it, like I'm going to make time. So you got to do those important self-care things.
Or you just combine it and you do your therapy appointment while you're at the dentist, and you have your dentist sit in the room with the therapist.
Well, and of course they ask you all the questions.
Talking with your mouth wide open.
So how was your week?
I'm ready.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Between Two Coaches. We're on a mission to make fitness more human, snark sold separately. I'm Coach Amanda, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host,
Coach Nick. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. We're back. 1 week hiatus, and we have a great episode tonight, just like the greatest episode. And we're here with our amazing guest, sports dietitian, Claire Shorstein.
You made sure to say.
Nope.
You made sure to specifically say the whole name incorrectly. The whole time.
Shorenstein.
Shorenstein did it. I didn't put all the. We're gonna have to season 2. We're gonna have to have someone else.
I'm looking for a new co-host. Like,
someone who can pronounce names.
I mean, we already said we didn't have to be coherent today, so it's all right. It's okay.
Well, we'll give me a B for effort. And we have an amazing episode. We're going to be talking about the importance of nutrition for injury recovery.
And whatever else comes up.
Great topic, and we're excited. Yeah, and mispronouncing names the entire episode, so that's why we're here.
Yeah. Claire, tell us a little. Welcome, Claire. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited. I know this has been kind of in the works for a while, so excited to be here. So I'm Claire Shorenstein, and I'm a board-certified sports dietitian. I've been a dietitian for a little over 10 years and lived in New York for a long time. Amanda and I were bonding over that earlier when you were on my show, the Eat for Endurance podcast. But now I'm out here in Santa Cruz, California, which is where I'm from. And my practice, it's a virtual private practice called Eat for Endurance. And I work with, I'd say, primarily recreational athletes, although I work with all kinds of athletes. And one of my specialties is endurance sports, because I am myself a distance runner. I've been a runner for, over 30 years, I think now. And I think it was in my 20s that I really started falling in love with the longer distances and trails and ultras and all that stuff. So it's something that I have a passion for. And I think that's what really drew me to becoming a dietitian. And I think as such, I tend to attract endurance athletes and especially runners. But, I work with all kinds of different athletes, triathletes and cyclists and swimmers, volleyball players, you name it. And I also just work with people who, they aren't necessarily training for anything, but they're just trying to figure out, they lead these super busy lives. We were talking, before we started recording about just how crazy busy we all are. And often people are just, they're trying to be active, whether or not they're training for an event, they're just trying to fit it all in. And, they have work and they have family and friends and just all the things. And then they're also trying to figure out how to support themselves with nutrition. And that's a very complicated, individualized, nuanced thing. And it can get really confusing. So, that's a lot what that's what I'm helping with is just kind of how nutrition is fitting into their busy lives to support their physical activity and whatever their other, health and wellness goals are.
Sounds like what a lot of people need. Sounds pretty great. I think you hit the head on the nail. A lot of people feel very busy, and nutrition seems to be the thing that falls off for most people because they'll always run, they'll always exercise. They won't skip that, but if they're busy, nutrition seems to be, and sleep, those seem to be the things that disappear immediately.
So not only is Nick mispronouncing names, he's creating his own metaphors tonight. The head on the nail. I like that. I'm actually going to use it. I do it all.
I mean,
Nick's reaction was I'm unfazed because I've
been doing it my whole life.
I've been doing it as his co-host. I don't know words when I speak at this hour. It's 5 p.m. Eastern time for us. Nick and I made a pact, and by Nick and I mean I did, for us both, that we were not going to interview anyone on the West Coast from here on out, because y'all are so much more alert than us, because it's what, 2 p.m. for Claire? It's an unfair advantage.
I'm not alert, I promise.
I love it.
Yeah, you just think I'm alert.
You're
pretending to be
doing
alert.
well. You're doing really well.
Thank you.
Hey, Amanda, I saw you did some stuff. You went on a little
we're getting a little
vacay.
personal, Nicholas Wood. Yes.
Yeah.
I like to, every year, I've shared this also with Claire. We were chatting while I was away. Every year, at least once a year, I like to send myself on a trip by myself. And this year I went to Buenos Aires, Argentina, and I have never been there before. It's the start of summer there, and had delicious food, carne asado at least 85% of the time.
Ooh, now like 50%
Was not
carne
50%.
asada.
I'm so jealous of all your food, by the way. Like, basically, every time I talk to you, you're just eating all the food I want, and it really makes me angry.
Claire's like, you have to try the gelato. And literally the next morning after my run, I was like, I'm walking into this gelato place. And I mean, it's
good.
It's
so
very good. Everything was good. And you didn't have to go somewhere to get good food. Similar to like New York City, it's like, where can I go for a good diner? It's like you have to get really niche to be like, that's it, right? That's
New Jersey.
Okay, don't start. Don't start. Only someone from New Jersey would put themselves into the New York City diner scene. You are not the 6th borough, Jersey. Okay, you're not the 6th. I'm gonna have some people come for me. It was just amazing. The food was great. The people there were wonderful. I really enjoyed myself. Thank you for asking. So I got back last week. Yeah.
And now you're all settled in, and everything is flowing naturally, because that's how it always works.
No one is really stressed at all. No one. I don't know what past Amanda was thinking. I also shared that offline. We were talking about how we put appointments on the schedule, and of course we have our athletes and so we, right before Thanksgiving, what were we thinking? But we're making it work. How was your week, Nick?
Thanks for asking. It has been a whirlwind. I think before we left, I was running a marathon, and then I didn't. I did not, for many reasons, but mostly because I started having some abdominal pain the Monday before the marathon, and then pretty sure I had some kidney stone related issues, which I dealt with, and it lasted for, I want to say, 2 days. It was into Wednesday afternoon. It was still really bad, and went over to the old patient first and got looked at, and then went to my urologist. And it all, by Thursday, it all checked out and felt better, and there was no signs of like blockage or anything, and like no signs of like a big kidney stone. So, but like knowing that I had a hotel and a flight, and it was like Wednesday afternoon and still feeling pretty crappy, I canceled the race, because I was like, your body sort of uses your kidneys a little bit. I mean, a lot during a marathon. So I was like,
we have an expert on.
If things are being bothered here, like, yeah.
It was a smart decision. I mean, it sounds like you just listened to your body and made a good call.
Yeah, and that was like sort of it. It was like bummed at first, but I was also like the big key to doing Indy was to get back in a routine of training. And I did a bunch of long runs. I got like 30 or 40 miles a week in for like 6 weeks, 7 weeks. So mission accomplished. I just didn't get that to run the race and get the medal. And then the following week I was back at it, ready to go, and then I had like a pretty sharp pain in my abdominal on like a random run on like Tuesday, and like stopped me in my tracks like a half mile in. So that was alarming. Took a few days off, talked to my PTs. You gotta have several. You gotta have them on their Rolodex, right?
I feel like half of
Nick's just tell them what's going on.
Are PTs also. You have so
true.
many. I was like, all these people. Like, everyone is a physical therapist on, which is great.
I know. Yeah, I just blast out a message on WhatsApp. I'm like, here are my symptoms. Please tell everyone chime in. No, but yeah. So I just took a few days off, and then I was like worried it was like now related. Like I'm thinking it's all in the same area. It was all over like a week and a half. It was just healing, and then since then it's been fine. Nothing going on, and I think I'm over it. But yeah, bummed to miss my marathon. Gonna look for maybe something local to do over the holidays or before Christmas, and then just still tracking towards Boston. So yeah, it was good. Halloween was fun. The kids ran out till like 9 p.m. at night looking for candy in every house they could. So it was quite the adventure of trick or treating all over town. So yeah, that was fun. Yeah. But we survived and we're here and we're ready for Thanksgiving because that's my favorite. It's one of my favorite holidays. I love the cooking aspect and the eating aspect and the watching football, relaxing aspect of it.
Thanksgiving is one of my favorite holidays too. I teach a class in the morning, but just right across the street. And then I do a couple of things. There's a local kitchen here. And we serve food to folks in need of a meal on Thanksgiving. And by we, I mean and I've really enjoyed it. And then I go into Queens to be with my family and I do absolutely nothing. I'm not helpful at all. Maybe I can season something, maybe not, but I love Thanksgiving for that reason. I love watching other people preparing a delicious meal for us. Yeah. What about you, Claire?
Yeah, I love Thanksgiving too. Sorry, my earbuds keep trying to like pop out of my ears, so sorry if I'm adjusting them all the time. Yeah, no, Thanksgiving is amazing. I usually am at my parents' house, which is like 5 minutes away, and my sister and her whole family come down, so the cousins are all just running around and having fun, and we eat lots of good food, and yeah, it's pretty chill. I'm definitely not as hands off, I guess you could say, but no, it's nice to just relax and be together and eat good food, and I'm just really looking forward to like literally this weekend. So it's November 19th, today we're recording. This weekend is the first weekend we have zero plans since August.
Hey.
And like we had one other weekend where we had like not like minimal plans, but we had house guests. So it's just been like a fall. Like this fall has been unlike any other. It's been just a lot going on. So I'm really honestly looking forward. And I think we're getting a huge storm too. And I did like a huge Costco run. So we have food, like the rainy season's about to start. Cause Northern California, it gets quite cold and get lots of rain. So like, I'm just really looking forward to like being in my pajamas, not doing anything, just chilling, just absolutely doing nothing. So maybe doing a puzzle. We just finished a 1,000-piece puzzle recently. That was very satisfying. So just hanging. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds great. Are either you guys turkey trotters?
I used to be, but the local turkey, I mean, there might be a turkey trot closer by, but I'm like on the other, I'm in Santa Cruz. I'm kind of South County, and there's one like all the way in Santa Cruz. Honestly, I just feel lazy and I don't want to drive anywhere. If I do anything, I'll definitely run, but actually my husband and I got engaged on Thanksgiving morning in our local redwood forest. So our little tradition, if we're able to get away from the kids, is to go for a run together. So I much prefer just doing that than doing a race.
Me too. Yeah, I would.
That's fun.
You've never ran one?
Yeah, never. I never ever, because I'm a big Thanksgiving stan, and like I wake up and like I'm already preparing the menu because we have 3 Thanksgivings because my mom's coming this weekend, so we're doing one with her. My in-laws are coming during Thanksgiving, and then we're doing Friendsgiving the following weekend. So I'm preparing 3 separate folders of the menus. I've pulled the kids in. I told them you each have to pick a recipe you want to make, and you're going to help make it. So one of them picked a pretty difficult to make cupcake situation that looks like reindeers. So that'll be fun. And then the other one picked mashed potatoes, and then we're going to have so like we're all involved. It's like all hands on. So for that reason, like I'm not done on Thanksgiving morning. I wake up and start prepping, everything's ready, and then we eat, and then sometime in the afternoon I'll probably go for a run just to stay awake. But yeah, not for me. I don't want to get up early in the morning and add extra to it. So yeah, I've never done one.
I forgot to mention this. So this is something I do every year. The day before Thanksgiving, being in New York, I walk past where and I'm very close to it, where they put up the balloons. Do people outside of New York also watch every Thanksgiving, the Thanksgiving Day parade? Because that's something I do every year.
Yeah. It's on the TV. The kids will without the kids, I don't think I had it on all those years when I became adult. Like when I was a kid, yes. When I became an adult, so like 28, then I didn't watch it anymore. And then when I have kids again, now it's back.
Claire, do you watch it? Oh, really?
I haven't actually watched it. No, I didn't watch it. I mean, I maybe saw little clips of it, but it's not something I'm like going out of my way to see or watch. But actually, that probably is a fun thing to see with the kids. I bet they would like that. Especially because both my girls were born in New York City, and my oldest one, we moved when she was like 4.5. So, New York is still very much in her memory, and she always talks about how she misses New York and she remembers her friends and everything. So it's always fun for her to kind of see New York City on the TV or wherever.
Yes. Yeah, it's a fun one. And it's a good thing to have in the background since you're going to start cooking at 5 a.m., Nick.
Start on Wednesday, and then you stay up all night cooking, and then you keep going Thursday morning.
I believe you.
It's not that intense.
You have all these help. You have 2 kids to help you. That's why you have them, right? Yeah.
I do. We'll call it help. We'll get videos of what help looks like, but
they sound more helpful than me, so I applaud them. All right. So we are here today to talk a little bit about nutrition. And Claire, why don't you tell us? You told us a little bit already about the population you work with. What are some common themes and challenges about with the populations, plural, that you work with when it comes to nutrition?
Yeah, I'd say the most common thing I see, and I know probably like most dietitians will say this, or sports dietitians, is just not eating enough. And that can be intentional or unintentional. Either that, or it's like just like seeing really inconsistent eating patterns. I mean, usually this is like under the not eating enough umbrella, right? So we see just general not eating enough, getting enough calories in the body. We see really inconsistent eating patterns where there'll be like these huge gaps in, between meals and snacks. And that can be because someone doesn't feel hungry, or someone's distracted and busy, or they haven't planned and prepared, or they're just not prioritizing nutrition, or they're actively trying not to eat. I mean, there are millions of reasons why people may not eat. And the other thing I see under that umbrella is just like wildly unbalanced plates in terms of like macronutrient distribution, like whether it's, a Caesar salad with chicken, but no carbs, or like a salad with like bread and no protein, or maybe I'm just using salad as an example, but, we'll just like see lots of things, or maybe it's like non-fat yogurt with fruit, but no fat in the meal, so there's just like lots of things where people often just don't understand what they need and how much they need to support all the activity that they're doing. So that's like a really basic thing that I'm working on with people, and just kind of helping them understand what their individual needs are and matching it to, their health and performance goals and their physical activity levels, and looking, at their lab work and seeing if they have any nutrient deficiencies and all that kind of stuff. So that's definitely one. I work with people who have a lot of gut issues. That's often related to not eating enough, or not getting the right types of foods in your diet. But, whether it's like everyday GI issues, often it can be during physical activity, during running, people are having, issues tolerating, performance nutrition or whatever it may be. So there's a lot of GI stuff. A lot of my clients come to me because, there are certain things that sometimes you can figure out and that aren't too complicated. When I have someone coming to me who like literally has no idea what to do, they have a million problems, their GI is just so bad, like they're coming to me just kind of desperate for help, right? So I get a lot of those cases just self-selecting because they can't figure it out by themselves, right? And then I get a lot of, I wouldn't say simple cases, but just, people who are maybe they're training for a marathon or, Ironman or some other endurance event, or just or half marathon, whatever it is. And they're new to the world of nutrition, and they don't know what to do. I get a lot of people coming to me after a really bad race experience where like, they're just like, I had really bad nausea or diarrhea or cramping or whatever it was, some fueling related issue. And they need help really like figuring out a different nutrition plan that works for them. And lastly, kind of on our topic today, I get a lot of people who are injured, and maybe they were referred to me because they have a bone stress injury, and their doctor suggested, this doesn't always happen, unfortunately, but once in a blue moon, a provider's like, hey, you should go see a dietitian, and work on nutrition. So I get some people that way, or, maybe people are dealing with kind of chronic injury and they're just realizing that, like, oh, wow, nutrition is such a big piece of this puzzle. I need to get help here.
Yeah, no, that's a wide range of population of different types of people, so that's pretty cool. I loved you talking about not fueling your plates right, or those types of things. I think that's a big sticking point, and something we've heard a lot, and I've heard a lot, is like not only that, but like around exercise, like like if you have a big long run, like how are you preparing for that the day before? If you did a hard effort, is your plate changing for those reasons, right? Like, I don't think people ever look at nutrition the way they do a training schedule. Okay, well, Wednesday's my quality day and Saturday's my long run, and this day is my medium long run. Okay, got that. So now in my mind, I know these are the days when I'm working hard and these are the days I'm doing easy runs. But what are they? No one looks at nutrition that way. Like, I'm going to eat the same thing every day or whatever looks good, and that's fine. Fuel your body, but like also, if you'll do a little better and prepare yourself better if you kind of make nutrition around that stuff, and like just take it a little like more like plan the same way. Like, okay, a long run means this, a quality session in the middle of the week means this, and just look for that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And I also get people who don't work with coaches. And like, I had a client recently who came to me exercising every day, just doing nothing but hard, like 60-minute sessions. Like, there's no variety in training. So some people like are not only not mixing up their nutrition, they're not mixing up their training. Obviously, I'm not a coach. Well, I guess I used to be, but I'm not right now. So I just give them very generalized advice and like, hey, maybe you should work with a coach. but yeah, so I see it both on the exercise side and on the nutrition side.
Yeah, I'm sure that's very common. The challenge with nutrition, similar to fitness, is that people think that because they know how to use a fork, they know how to feed themselves. And it's just not that's not how it works. Like, you need to outsource, you need to tap into folks who are experts in this, but that's not promoted as much. But in our circle, it is. I know for Nick and I, we are constantly referring out and taking advantages of those services ourselves personally. So that's important to lead by example, as Coach Nick says. So when an athlete comes to you, or maybe they've been working with you previously and they get injured, or they have a surgery, because I know sometimes it's very similar. There are similar protocols that can be put into place. What considerations are you taking into account as their dietitian when it first happens in the acute phase?
Yeah. So yeah, as you said, in that acute phase, yeah, if I happen to be working with someone and they have a surgery planned, or I happen to be working with someone and they get injured, then I catch them in that phase. And that's great, because we can really get nutrition going. Often what's happening though is people are kind of getting injured and they're coming to me way down the line. Like, they've already kind of done some things or not done some things, and then they're, it's maybe not going so well, or whatever the case may be. Maybe they were referred, so like a lot of that acute phase has already happened, and they're now in that, so that's the first phase. They're now in that, second phase, or that kind of regenerative phase, right? Where nutrition is also
acute
really
phase.
crucial.
Let's define it.
Or maybe they're even returning to. Yeah. So acute. Yeah. So acute would be like where you got injured. So you really just had that trauma happen to your body. So maybe you sprained an ankle, or you broke a bone, or you just had surgery. So there's a lot of inflammation that we're trying to manage, and the length of this phase will depend on the injury, right? Because as you can imagine, the ranges of injuries, it's vast, right? So like, do you have a little niggle, or like, are you fully immobilized and just had some massive surgery or something, right? So how we talk about nutrition, it really does depend on the context of the injury. And of course, we'll differentiate a bit with that, and we'll also throw out some general stuff today. But so we have to kind of keep that in mind, right? So that's the acute phase. It could be maybe a couple days, a few days. It could be a couple weeks, depending on what the case may be, right? So so that's the acute phase. And then just to kind of define those other phases, that second phase is that like proliferation phase or the tissue repair phase, where the healing process is going on. And then the third phase is we're basically trying to return to sport, right? So what this looks like in terms of nutrition and physical activity and timeline, again, that depends on the specific injury. But generally speaking, in the acute phase, I think there are, a number of things that we're kind of looking at and that we're keeping in mind. Number one is either rest, or some form of reduced or maybe just modified physical activity. So again, depending on how severe the injury is, it might be that you're just doing a little bit less of what you're doing. It might be that you're fully immobilized and can't do anything. It might be that you're able to cross train. So if you can't run, maybe you're swimming or cycling or whatever it may be. So again, that's important to kind of consider, what are you actually doing? Because I'm sure you've encountered this. I certainly have, where I have someone who is not cleared to run, but is cleared to cross train. Maybe they're like coming off of a bone injury or something like that. And this could even be someone in the off season where they're not running as much, but they're doing other things. And in their head, they're like, oh, I don't need to eat as much because I'm no longer training for a marathon or whatever they're doing, right? And it's like, hello, you're like putting in so much physical, we have to look at actual energy expenditure. Just because you're not running or not doing the same thing, you're still expending energy, not to mention the healing process and what that actually requires. And I'll circle back to that in a second. So rest is something that, or how your physical activity has changed is something that we want to be considering. So how inactive or active you are. The other thing that we want to keep in mind is the acute phase is the inflammation phase, right? So we want to remember, because that's such like a word that evokes lots of feelings, and usually we think, oh, bad, right? So inflammation isn't always bad. It can, in the acute injury context, it's part of the natural healing process. And it's different from, say, chronic inflammation, which is normally what we view as more of a bad thing. But the acute inflammation is part of the healing process. We want that to happen. I think that this is where people get really tripped up, just kind of bringing it back to the nutrition part, is that, they think just because they're slightly less active, let's say they're even fully immobilized, let's say they just had a surgery, they can't do any weight bearing activity, they're sedentary, whatever. We think or these people might think, hey, I'm not exercising, I don't need to eat, or I don't need to eat as much, right? When that can't be further from the truth, because if you're not giving your body adequate amounts of energy and all of the key nutrients that your body requires to heal and recover and all of that, you're prolonging the inflammatory process. You might be slowing down the healing process. So you're increasing that timeline. No one wants to be injured for a longer period of time, right? And it may even cause other issues to turn an acute problem into a more chronic issue. So it's important to kind of view it from that standpoint. From another consideration, again, thinking in this acute phase of things where people are potentially less active, maybe they're on pain meds, maybe they're just really tired. If they just got a surgery, their body's not feeling normal, their appetite's off. There are all these things that may be getting in the way of normal eating. So even if someone is, for instance, yes, I know I need to eat enough and I know I need to eat regularly, there can be lots of challenges there, because if you just went from really consistent physical activity and suddenly you're mobilized, that does a number of things to your physical and mental well-being, right? So there's also just the piece of, hey, I'm not doing my sport. That's a huge piece of my identity. This sucks. I've been injured. It's the worst. And then there's the piece of a fear of weight gain, and then just not thinking you need, this is such it's a very layered situation. So this is where getting back to that kind of identity piece and mental health piece, something I work on with my clients who are not injured, and I work on this all the time, is making sure that we're cultivating other hobbies and interests and passions other than exercise.
Yeah.
Because we can't, because like exercise and food are awesome. We can definitely use those as coping mechanisms. Like that's fine. However, like those can't be your only tools in the toolbox. We have to have other things we can lean on so that when you can't do the thing that you want to do, you're not just left there being like, oh my God, like I have nothing. So that's really, really, really important.
Yeah, you mentioning the whole, I mean, so much of that resonates, but like, I think people definitely most people when they get injured, I find go even harder. Like if they can cross train there, all of a sudden it's from, I run 45 minutes a day and now it's like, well, I'm cross training for 2 hours a day because I'm injured and I need to catch up my fitness, whatever that means. And then they're eating even less because they're not fueling the run because it's just cross training. It's just riding a bike. It's just doing an elliptical. I don't need to eat for that. I don't need to eat that after that, but I do for my runs. So they're falling behind. And, I think, and, Man and I have talked a lot about, people finding something outside of their sport, especially when you're like, the other part of this is like some people just do this and love it and it's fun and passionate. They just go out and run every day and they don't care about results. But there's a lot of people who care about like chasing times and goals. And like then an injury, like it becomes like, well, it's devastating and like they have nothing else to sort of rely on when that they can't run, right? Or it's their stress reliever, like you said. And how are they going to relieve stress now? I'm going to go run anyway, even though I'm only a little hurt, right? So, yeah, there's so much to it. But all that was really good.
Yeah, and that's, from the nutrition standpoint then of like, well, what do we do in this phase? What are we thinking about? So, it's really important to, like, I'm encouraging my athletes to do their best to stick with regular, consistent, adequate eating. And this is where, going back to those performance plates, it's really helpful to think about just those balanced plates with, and you're getting lots of colorful fruits and vegetables with micronutrients. If eating is really hard, maybe we're leaning more on liquid nutrition. I'm a huge fan of smoothies. Smoothies are awesome. So if that's the way we're getting stuff in, then great. If like you just can't get enough solid foods in, so smoothies are fine. And then just kind of figuring out, okay, well, like, how can we get these different things in? How can we fit in maybe some anti-inflammatory foods, which really, like, we should be assessing in your diet regardless. So this is where a lot of the work I do with clients is like, preventative, right? Just like regular stuff is like, hey, do you have a variety of anti-inflammatory and antioxidant rich foods in your diet already? So whether we're eating fish, or maybe you aren't getting enough and we have to supplement with omega-3, omega-3s, whether it's a fish oil or an alga oil, if you're vegetarian or vegan. Are you getting like bright colored fruits and tart cherry juice or whatever, like getting those polyphenols in? So there are lots of things we can do through food to get a lot of key nutrition in and kind of help with this process.
So one thing that if I am I'm sure this is a question that people are having right now. They're listening to this and they're like, there's a niggle that they've had or something that an injury that is never fully healed, right? It flares up. Is there such a thing as too late for somebody to engage you in their plan to heal better from something that's kind of chronic?
No, I don't. Yeah, to be perfectly honest, I'm living this right now with a glute medius strain. I call it my hip injury, but it's technically like, it's like all the attachments of my glute med. It's like a tendonitis style thing. That's a chronic overuse thing because I hate strength training and I'm just paying the price. Yeah. I don't think it's ever too late, obviously, to improve your nutrition and work on your nutrition and support yourself in that way. In terms of like, quote unquote, curing yourself. Like, I'm obviously not a physical therapist. I'm not a doctor. Like a lot of times we're really working within a team to solve problems. So, for just use myself as an example, like I'm going to my PT to make sure I'm doing work to really like work those tendons and strengthen those tendons. But that alone is not going to do the thing. Just like nutrition alone isn't going to fix the problem, right? So it's really kind of approaching these things from different angles, and an interdisciplinary team really is where it's at. But yeah, no, I mean, absolutely, it's not too late to kind of improve nutrition ever. So, you know, you shouldn't be like, all is lost, I should never try to improve anything ever again. You know, if I mean, yeah, I get people all the time who come to me long after a former bone stress injury, and there's no way that they were doing anything close to what they should have been doing. And often what happens, unfortunately, is that they get a different bone stress injury in a different place not long after, right? And we see that. So then it's just like, okay, cool. Well, how can we keep this from happening again and again? So it's just like, okay, well, we can't change the past. We can work on the future and the present, right? So,
well, I'm also going to say to you, I'm going to put on my personal trainer hat. It's never too late to start strength training, Claire.
Yes.
And there's a great strength trainer right here, and she's right in this podcast with you.
I know. I have been. No, I have been starting. I've been better.
I'm very, very happy to hear that. But yeah, that's a real thing. Okay, good. So for all those listening, hope is not lost. It's not even. It's on the mat. Just get after it with professionals who can support you, and just like anything else, support for an injury doesn't live in a vacuum. You have to, like you said, tackle it from all different angles. So let's get a little specific for folks. We just spoke about bone stress injuries, for example. Nutrition for maybe even an individual has never had a bone stress injury, but they could be at risk for osteopenia or osteoporosis. Nutrition for bone health in general. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's going to definitely be a lot of overlap when we're talking about different types of injuries, right? And when we're talking about just injury prevention generally and nutrition for bone health or for all these things, I mean, eating enough is the most important thing always. And I'm sure many listeners have heard that before. And you know, because if you're not getting enough like calories into your body, you know, you're most likely not getting enough of also the nutrients that you need for all the different things. So we have to remember that for like, in order to be, you know, to preserve our lean body mass, which is such an important part of injury recovery, and you know, whether you're recovering from a surgery or any kind of injury, really, especially if you're less active, right? Because you're less active, often we see some muscle loss and all of that. But, you know, we need carbohydrates as muscle sparing. We need enough energy in the body to preserve your muscle, and also just to support bone healing. And the thing about bone and bone health is, like, if you've had a bone stress injury, much like with surgery, your energy needs just go way up. Right. So this is one of those things where, again, people get a little bit confused and they're like, well, I'm not moving. I'm in a boot, or I'm like hanging out, not doing much. Like, why do I need to eat so much? It's like, because your body is working its butt off trying to heal itself. That's why. So yeah, enough energy into the body is a really big one. Protein, and this is one that's going to kind of appear for a lot of different things, but, you know, protein is a really important thing there. I'll go into that a little bit more with muscle recovery. But, you know, so then like certain micronutrients like vitamin D is really important. A lot of people, unfortunately, just, it's a little harder to get in the diet. So, you know, like certain things are fortified, but that's one of those things where if you can get out in the sun, we make it in the skin. But hey, this time of year, it's November. A lot of people are obviously not getting much sunlight exposure. And if they're outside at all, yeah. And if they're outside at all, they're covered. And hey, even if you are like
Buenos Aires,
for example, or Caribbean or wherever, Buenos Aires, yeah. Oh, it's hot as hell in Buenos Aires. I remember that when I was there. But like, you're probably wearing sunscreen or covering up, you know, so it's like, you're not always like exposed skin and able to kind of give yourself that opportunity to make it. So this is one of those things where I highly recommend you get tested.
Yes.
You know, your blood work done on a semi-regular basis. The best time to get tested is in the fall because you're coming off of summer, right? So if you're low then you know that you're going to really be low after winter. So this is one of those things where, depending on where you live, so if you're in the Northeast or in other parts where, again, you're not getting much sun exposure, you might have to you definitely have to supplement, or most likely need to supplement in, fall, winter, and spring. And you may even need to supplement year round, depending on where you live and what your lifestyle is like. So that's a really important one for bone. Calcium is really important. However, that's something we really want to, generally speaking, as much as possible, we want to be getting these micronutrients from food versus supplementation, for a variety of reasons. But with calcium supplements in particular, there's only so much we can use and absorb at one time. And we really want to kind of spread out our intake across the day. And there are just so many different foods where we can get calcium, even if you don't eat dairy, because dairy is the one we always think about, right? And it's a beautiful source of calcium. It's wonderful. And things like yogurt are so wonderful because you're getting protein, you're getting calcium, you're getting, getting a number of things in there that are really important. But if you don't eat dairy, you can get fortified non-dairy products. Just check that it is fortified. You can eat tofu, almonds, leafy greens, broccoli. There are a number of things that do have calcium in them. And so if you're kind of spreading that across your day, that's a really important thing. And then there are a number of other things like vitamin K is really important for bone health, for instance. And that's something that we can get in food, and we also make in the gut. So this is where gut health really becomes quite important. There are bacteria. So there are two different types of vitamin K, and one we get through food like leafy greens and cruciferous veggies, and the other kind we can make in our gut through bacteria that we have in there. So this is where it's really important to, number one, be eating a variety of plant foods, to be getting lots of fiber in, which really helps with gut health, feeds the bacteria. But then also we need those good bacteria in our gut from whether it's like fermented foods like, miso or kimchi or
pickles,
kefir or yogurt. It's like all that kind of stuff. Pickles in the refrigerated section.
Specifically
so
from New
refrigerated
York.
Section. Yeah, there you go. Exactly. So, we want to kind of help there. And there's some, so that's something that we probably wouldn't be supplementing, but it's something that we definitely want to be getting from food. What else am I mentioning or forgetting to mention? I said calcium and vitamin D, phosphorus. We're really just trying to have obviously a well-rounded, adequate diet. And again, it's not only food, right? You guys are coaches, you're a strength. We know that weight bearing exercise is important. Like there are just like a number of other things that are also important. Carbohydrates, super, super important. And yeah, and just thinking specifically for bone, if there's anything else, look at my notes. If there's anything, I don't think I have anything else on my list.
Okay.
For bone specifically.
Two things I'm gonna share. So we know that if you listen to this podcast, this is not the first time you've heard me say we build bad bitch bones. So the 3 ways to do it are all the ways that Claire just said, strength training and plyometrics. Running is not a bone building activity. So those are the 3 ways we do it, and they are very, very important. The other thing I was going to say was what you mentioned about vitamin. I see this a lot online, so I want to call it out. A lot of influencers, and this can go for really any supplement that I see some influencers share, like you get a free vitamin D pack with whatever thing you purchase through my code. Not everyone, and I'm using myself as an example, I know it's rare, but not everyone needs vitamin D. I am somebody who I was tested personally, and I was told that I need to never take a vitamin D supplement ever.
Yeah, because it can be toxic if you're taking it, if it's fat soluble vitamin, you don't want to take too much.
So that I just wanted to share that as like, do not blindly take vitamin D. Seems like something that
totally
could be quote unquote harmless, but it could actually cause harm to you if you don't need to take it. Very rare, but I was a rare, so I'm just sharing that.
You shouldn't just blindly take supplements and just like up all your levels to the max.
No, you shouldn't. You shouldn't. And I hope this gets out to the people who need it.
I see both extremes there, where I get a lot of people who, because one of the questions I ask when I first meet with someone is like, what supplements are you taking, right? So they'll have some lists of whatever supplements, and so they'll see vitamin D. I'm like, okay, why are you taking that, or how long? Why? Yeah. But like, how long have you been taking that? Why? They're like, oh, my doctor told me to take this. I'm like, how long ago? 5 years ago. Maybe we need to like retest your vitamin D and make sure like that's not great. And hey, sometimes we retest them and they really do need to be taking it. And then other times I see people who like their doctor never asked to see vitamin D. They never test their vitamin D, and we test it and it's obviously not in a good place and we have to put them on it. So like, it's just one of those things that I am like, hey, get this in your lab work once a year. Let's see where you're at. If it's like really, really low and we're giving you a higher dose, let's retest and see what happens. And then we can maybe pull back. But no, we don't want to be blindly supplementing things.
Yeah. I mean, it's sometimes easy though to just click your favorite influencers like page and just pick all their supplement package, right?
Yep.
Or add to cart.
Same. Shot not on that. I will not be doing that. Yes. So moving along, so we covered some critical things for bone health, and that's fabulous. Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit about ligaments and tendons. You were just talking about a tendinopathy or a tendinitis in the glute. Talk to us a little bit about nutrition to support that.
Yeah. So when we're working with soft tissues, so yeah, tendons, ligaments, that includes muscle, but we can do muscle separately. We have to consider, for anything really, we always have to consider, is this a surgical situation or not? Because that obviously has different needs and outcomes and everything. But for any kind of soft tissue thing, hydration is something that's super duper important. Of course, hydration is important for everybody, but just really making sure, like, especially with tendons and ligaments, like blood flow isn't great to those areas. And, when we talk about, for instance, like collagen and like supplementing collagen, that's like, that's like a whole separate conversation, but, we're doing it before exercise, and part of it is to like increase blood flow to the area, and it's like getting the collagen there and all that. But thinking about like, what is like hydration, what does water and other fluids actually do? Well, it's transporting nutrients in the body, it's removing waste products, it's just getting things to where it needs to go. So really making sure that you're staying on top of your hydration is important. And again, this goes back to how active you are. Like when you're not as active as you normally are you still hydrating? Are you still staying on top of things? Are you not feeling as thirsty? Are you even thinking about these things? So that's one thing we want to think about. Protein, as I mentioned, is just so important to maintaining lean muscle mass, and also, our tendons and ligaments, and just staying healthy overall, and recovery and repair. So whenever we think about those things, so leucine in particular, this is more in the muscle recovery standpoint, but I think I'm just going to kind of crush all of the soft tissue together. But, when we're thinking about what's important when it comes to like muscle recovery and repair, leucine is a essential amino acid, a branched chain amino acid that is very key to kind of stimulating muscle protein synthesis and preserving muscle mass. And so, whenever we're in these situations, whether it's a surgery situation or not, but particularly when we're less active, we really want to be making sure that we're doing our best to increase our protein and preserve our lean muscle mass. So this is a really important piece because, sometimes we think about, like, we don't want to just think about quantity when it comes to protein, but also the quality of the protein. So is the protein that you're consuming, does it have all the essential amino acids and all the amino acids that you need in order to actually make a difference with your muscle mass? So, and it's actually not that hard, no matter what diet you have, to get like a good quality protein. And I guess you can kind of say good quality in quotes. I'm not trying to say something's good or bad or anything like that, but it's more from the standpoint of which amino acids are present. If you're having like 20 to 40 grams of a lot of different proteins, whether it's like chicken or fish or meat, or you're getting tofu or eggs, like you might, if it's vegetarian, maybe you're layering different things. Maybe you're having like beans or peas and tofu and like various other things that, aren't quite as high in protein as, say, like a chicken breast or something, right? Maybe you're having eggs and yogurt and a variety of things. So it's really easy to get a good amount of leucine, as well as all the other amino acids that you need in foods like that. Because what we don't want to be doing here is like taking an amino acid supplement, like just a leucine supplement or even like a branched chain amino acid supplement. That's not what we're going for. We really want to be having like all of the essential amino acids, all the amino acids that you need present. And we're looking for roughly like 2 or 3 grams of leucine per serving. And again, you can get that in 20 to 40 grams of protein from those foods I just mentioned. So that's a really important one. And yeah, again, carbohydrate, it's muscle sparing. If you are going, like, this is something I see where, again, people are less active. So in their mind, they're like, I'm not exercising as much. I don't need to eat as many carbs. It's like, okay, well, you don't want to go super, like, yes, kind of, but also you may or may not have like dramatically increased energy needs depending on the injury. And if our goal is to preserve your lean body mass as much as possible, yes, we need high protein, but we also need carbohydrate to spare that muscle mass, right? We don't want to be breaking down our muscle mass to turn it into glucose, right? So it's important. And then like eating enough energy on top of that. So all these things, again, it's there's a lot of overlap with this stuff, but yeah, I think that's what I have to say about soft tissue for now.
So good. So informative.
Yeah.
Anything you wanted to say, Nicholas? No.
That was a lot of informative stuff for me too. That's a lot of stuff I'm aware of, so I've learned a lot.
I love it. So, all right. So we spoke about how kind of the needs are different, but if I had to put a TLDR on this, too long didn't read, you need to be getting in enough food. Yep. And I think that the gap in understanding is folks' comprehension around what enough means. And so you've kind of highlighted the areas to consider, and the nutrition that supports just in terms of the nutrition that supports day-to-day muscle recovery for an active person. You would say that the same nutrition, quote unquote, rules apply that you mentioned.
So wait, sorry, can you repeat the question? My husband just said, I think my child is sick and I just got a text about it. I'm totally distracted, but all is well.
Nutrition to support the mom who has a sick kid. Every parent needs that.
I muscle recovery, but I just want to make sure I answer the question correctly. So I wanted to be honest.
Honesty is what we're after on this podcast. I was going to make a joke that I'm not going to make about honesty and supplements and nutritionists and podcasts. I'm going to be quiet. All right. So, I said I'd be quiet. I said
censorship.
All I was going to say was, I was just saying the nutrition needs or considerations that you mentioned for injury, for surgery, for bone, for muscle. One might say that these are things we should take into consideration for day-to-day muscle recovery.
Yes. Yeah. And of it, like, yes. So like so essentially what you're asking, I'm assuming, is like, what is the difference between I just went for a long run and I need to recover versus I'm super injured and need to stay on top of my nutrition intake. And I mean, they're slightly different, but there's some common themes, right? So everything I just said about leucine absolutely applies to recovery after a long run, right? We absolutely want to get our carbs in. I mean, it's more about timing, nutrient timing in the case of like recovery post long run and the timing of carbs and fluids and electrolytes. Like obviously there's a lot of things to consider, but when we talk about recovery post long run, we're still looking at, anti-inflammatory fats. Whoops, just shook my computer. Anti-inflammatory fats. We're looking at polyphenols, antioxidants, like all these things that we're thinking about in the injury setting. A lot of those also, they do apply in the recovery setting because we're trying to accomplish different things, but also similar things because we're still trying to modify that inflammatory response. We're still trying to get important nutrients in and recover and repair. So there is a lot of similarities there that we can look at.
Yeah, I think the big thing about like runners or any exercise people don't do is they don't plan around like their efforts, right? So they go for a long run and they drive to meet some people and maybe they rush their breakfast because it's super early and then they don't bring anything post run and they drive 30-40 minutes home and then they finally sit down and they go make something and then it's an hour and a half after they finish their long run and they're like, And then the rest of the day, they're like laying on the couch and they're zombies and they're like, oh, this just happens after long runs. And I'm like, it doesn't have to. Like, you know, you could like, and like, it's sometimes as simple as just getting it started, right? Like, so grab a drink that you can make, put it in your car and then drink that right after the run and then get a meal when you get home. Like, you know, but like jump starting the recovery. Like I tell people the run doesn't end. The workout doesn't end until you start the recovery, right? That's when it ends, right? Not just because your watch you hit stop. Like once you start the recovery and then your run is finally over and now you can work on the next phase.
Yeah, and that kind of goes into the bucket of injury prevention, I would say, because when I'm seeing these people who are just not prioritizing nutrition and or they're just not training in a smart way, or both those things combined especially, I mean, that's when you're just much more prone to these things happening because you're just not giving your body what it needs, and your body is not going to put up with that shit for much longer, you know? So at a certain point, especially, you know, I'm 43, so like at a certain point, like you just can't get away with that anymore. So it's really important to prioritize. Like if you're prioritizing your training, you have to prioritize your nutrition. Like I always tell people, they go hand in hand. You can't just do one and not the other. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah. What's interesting to me is the shift. Once you've started fueling correctly, I can't imagine like the person I would be if I didn't get something in immediately after my workout. Like you'll never go fast. Like you stop needing to take extensive naps after you work out. You recover quicker. I don't know. And this is information that you share complimentary on, on your social media and on your website, and here on this podcast. And I don't know the resistance, behind it other than the fact that you just need a little bit of preparation, just a little bit, and it goes a long way. Yep.
Just a little bit.
I mean, a lot of people they just don't know what to do either. And I actually have a number of really detailed blog posts, you know, again, free resources on what to eat before a short run, what to eat before a long run, hydration for endurance athletes, what to eat during a long run, what to eat after a long run, how to know how much to eat every day. Like I have all these resources on my website in case anyone is looking for some light reading. You know, it's pretty detailed, lots of visuals in there. But just, you know, educating themselves and just getting ideas, because sometimes people just don't know what to do. Maybe some people are, it might be just hey, I'm not prioritizing it. Some people are afraid to eat more. I mean, there are a number of reasons why people don't eat. But if, you know, I just try to get people to try something and then to really make that connection between how that food makes you feel, whether it's in that moment, during the run, later in the day. You know, often when I'm getting people to go from fasted, like not eating before a training session, to eating something, even if it's like a short session, they don't always feel a difference in that moment. But then we're looking at, oh, well, are you like out of control eating later on? Like, what are your energy levels like later in the day? Like, are you wake up in the middle of the night and eating? Like, we're just looking at all these different things. And most of the time, you know, there might be a few cases here and there where, okay, maybe you don't need to eat necessarily, but almost everybody for the most part would benefit from eating before all workouts. It's another eating opportunity. And in our busy lives, everyone's on the go doing so many things. Like you got to take advantage of those eating opportunities, especially if you're an endurance athlete, right? So maybe if you're not very active, like, okay, well, you know, maybe it's not such a big deal, but for most people I work with, like it's essential. It's essential that you get something in. And I know when I was like young and stupid and was doing fasted runs, like I would go for a run and it would be fine. I feel fine. Now, like, I'm just so used to eating, and also like I feel so amazing when I do. If I run fasted for whatever reason, which pretty much never happens, but for some reason it did happen, like I feel like I'm gonna throw up. Like I just can't even do it anymore. Honestly, I don't know how people do that.
And so you mentioned earlier, so Claire's website, and she'll give all the details at the end, but it's eatforendurance.com, right? Yes, yeah. Sorry, just wanted to make sure.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep, I have a blog. I have free downloads, including one on what to eat before exercise. Oh, yes, I do. Yeah, well, I don't know what's coming out, but it's Black Friday sale. Oh, brilliant. Well, okay. Well, it ends Friday,
Oh,
the
you
22nd
have
at midnight. So, or
yes.
11:59. Lots of really great deals in there.
Yeah.
For my Black Friday sale. But also, like, if you're just like, okay, who the hell is this lady? And I don't want to spend money yet, like, go to my free downloads or go to my blogs, listen to my podcast. I have so many free resources that you can just check out and you
Also, like,
can
don't
get
ask
sense for
stupid
things.
questions. Like, you know who the hell this lady is. Stop being stupid.
Yeah.
You know that you've been putting off taking care of yourself. Stop being stupid. Don't be a stupid.
Yeah, and replenish those car snacks so you never drive.
Yes, I love car snacks.
Yes.
Car snacks, bag snacks, purse
Yeah.
snacks, whatever, pocket snacks, just all the snacks.
Store them on your kids and have them carry it around.
One of my freebie downloads is actually a travel what is it called? I think it's called Travel Snack Foods and Checklist. And it's really funny because I was working on my SEO for my website, and for some reason that thing is like blowing up. I don't know, like everyone is searching for travel snack food ideas or traveling foods or like everyone is coming to my site for travel foods. I'm like, okay, cool. Well, I'm now the travel food dietitian apparently. But I'll just say, like, if you're on the go, and I know we're coming up on holiday season and all that, a lot of people want ideas for when they're traveling or when they're walking around the city, and that freebie has a ton of ideas of what to pack.
That's great. And I wanted to, because you mentioned it before, and it is popularized on many podcasts. You mentioned collagen and how, and really how, in order for it to be utilized, it has to be, who needs, quote unquote, to take collagen. I talked about this a little bit in my Instagram the other day when I was sharing, somebody had gifted me a product, and I wanted to share that this happens often with any size influencer. They'll get gifted a product.
Yeah.
They'll use it either incorrectly or unnecessarily, and other people spend money on it. So who should, quote unquote, use collagen? Who needs to? Is it necessary? And when should it be used?
Yeah. Okay. So collagen, I mean, first of all, what even is collagen? It's a very prominent protein in the body. It's found in like skin and bone and muscles and ligaments and tendons. It's found all over the place. And we basically are making it at a reduced rate as we age. We're losing it. It's partly why we get all wrinkly and all that. We're like losing elasticity in our skin and such. But in terms of the injury setting or even injury prevention, there is a bunch of evidence, although not all of it is of amazing strength, showing that it can help in settings like with, inflammation, like with tendinitis. It can help with certain diseases like osteoarthritis. It can help with potentially reduce joint pain. I have to say may and potentially because, that's how it goes with these things, right? Nothing is definitive. And it may help, for instance, if you are in like a really high volume of training in injury prevention, potentially. But it's really used mostly in these settings where maybe there's some sort of, again, inflammation in a tendon or a joint, pain management, that kind of stuff. And in terms of how you're using it, so I actually talked about this in my own podcast recently, where what I see is people throwing collagen powder into their smoothies post-workout. And this is not what we are doing. Maybe you'll get a little aesthetic benefit for your skin if you do that, but it's not going to help with what I just mentioned, right? So I mentioned earlier how like blood flow to tendons and ligaments and all that, it's not so great. And if we're taking collagen, which by the way, we want to have with a small amount of vitamin C, so that it doesn't need to be a supplement, it could be from food, where, we're taking that like 30 to 60 minutes prior to exercise. And we're not just taking like 5 grams, we're taking more like 10 to 15, potentially up to 20 grams. And we're doing that. So again, exercise is really helping with the blood flow, circulation, getting the collagen. And that is really what's important specifically for like tendons and ligaments and that type of thing. With bone, I think I did see some research don't quote me on this. I think I did see some research where it might not be as dependent on exercise, but I could be wrong there. But for the most part, the recommendation is pre-exercise. The other thing to consider when it comes to, like, yes, it is a protein. So people are like, well, why can't I take as a protein? Because, you know, you go into Costco or any supplement, I mean, everyone and their mother is taking like Vital Proteins, this and that, and putting in their coffee and whatever, right? So it's like, yeah, you wander around, like, I always think about like going to Costco and they're handing out samples of like, I'm like, who are these people taking samples of
They're taking them,
right
they're going
now?
out for their run. I'll come back to Costco.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. Exactly. But so the reason why, going back to what I was saying about leucine, the reason why we don't want to be using collagen as a, you know, good quality protein source is that it just doesn't have all the amino acids that we need present in order to make it a adequate protein source. So that isn't like, that's different from, say, using a protein powder like whey, which is a very good source of leucine. It's very easy to digest and easily absorbed and is a high quality protein, right? So so you can use something like that. And we talked about smoothies. Like, there's nothing wrong with, in terms of supplements, like protein powder can be a really great way of meeting high protein needs, because remember that some of these people, whether it's surgery or bone or whatever, I mean, you could be needing up to like 1 gram per pound or 2.2 grams per kilogram of grams of protein per kilogram of body weight, just to clarify that. You know, it's a lot depending on your body size. So protein powders can be really helpful. But yeah, collagen is one of those things where if you're injured and you're just like, I'm throwing everything at this, I totally would include collagen. Do it. It's not going to hurt you, most likely. Get a quality brand, get something that's third party tested, obviously.
Well, you're saying obviously, but
most
you know,
likely, like, well, yeah, I know. So like, in my mind, like, best case it helps, worst case it does absolutely nothing. That's kind of my viewpoint on collagen.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Anything else that you wanted to share before we get into the super secret guest questions?
Yes.
Ooh. Yeah, I mean, I mentioned, just because we're talking supplements, I mentioned omega-3s, and I really encourage everybody to kind of just do a quick self-assessment of if you're getting omega-3 sources in your diet, specifically fish. So like, yes, like flax and, you know, some other things have it, but it's just not the form. It's not gonna be an efficient form that you need. So if you're really not eating like 2 big servings of fish each week, like really routinely, you might need,
I love fish.
I take omega-3s. You might, oh, you are? Okay. Yeah. So if you are, great.
I'm having fish tonight.
Great. Wonderful. But yeah, so that might be something that you want to consider adding. And again, if you are vegan or vegetarian, you can do an algal oil. We talked about vitamin D, getting your lab work done. That's super important. And what else would I say? I think, oh yeah, the only other thing I would say is creatine is something creatine monohydrate is a very popular supplement. And in the injury setting, that's sometimes included because it may help with injury recovery by helping to maintain muscle mass among doing some other things. So again, maintaining muscle mass is so important because if you think about what's going to help with the timeline to return to sport, it's, you know, maintaining your strength, maintaining your endurance. Like, you can't do that if you've lost muscle mass, right? So, so that's why, like, meeting protein needs, maintaining muscle mass, that's why we emphasize that so much. So like, creatine can be an important part there. If for some reason this is less common with runners, but, you know, sometimes we see it in other types of athletes where concussion or some mild traumatic brain injury, that's where also creatine can help with, you know, with just supporting brain health and reducing some damage there. So that's the only other thing I would mention. I
could use that in remembering people's names.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
No, several years ago, I started taking creatine, and there was that research had started to emerge about, in its relation to cognitive support and.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I was not afraid of. There's a lot of chatter on the internet, as I'm sure many of our listeners know, around creatine, especially for women. Like, well, I gained weight and I didn't. I don't know that I felt like, oh my God, so great. But it was to the point where I was like, Mom, you should take this, because she started lifting weights, and because we have Alzheimer's and dementia on both sides. So somebody who in her past was very hesitant to try something that could potentially cause it's not even gaining weight. You retain water for a short period of time. But the conversation was, oh, you're going to gain weight. And the fact that she takes it every day, I'm like, yeah, we're both, it's worth it for us. So, and it's a very, very affordable supplement, and that could be thrown in. Yep.
And well-researched, very safe, very well-researched.
Post-workout protein carb shake. Easy. You have the secret questions, Nick. Do you have them readily available?
I do. Let me open their secret case. All right. Here we go. Rapid fire.
Slow burn.
They're not really rapid fire at all. Yeah. Question the one. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
My goodness. Like in
your
anything?
Entire life.
In anything.
Jeez.
The whole world.
Oh my God. I don't know. What's the best piece of advice I've ever received? I think, well, okay, this is, I don't think it's the best piece of advice I've ever received, but this is top of mind right now because I literally just wrote about it. It's learning to, when I got married, my rabbi, who like literally named me as a baby, did my bat mitzvah, married me, named my children. I mean, I love him so dearly. He's been in our lives forever. But when he was, he was meeting with my husband and me and just counseling us as we were getting ready for our marriage. And he was talking to us about, quote, managing the joy and how we learn to kind of manage the joy. And that phrase has really stuck with me. And because, with any kind of joyous occasion, or, we're approaching Thanksgiving, any holiday gathering, really anything, I truly use this. It's so relevant to like, maybe I'm prepping for a big race, whatever. There's lots of joy to manage. And by joy to manage, there's like lots of people, lots of logistics, lots of stress, lots of things. And it kind of just got me thinking about all the different ways that I can take care of myself when in the midst of whatever life's stuff, chaos, whatever is happening, right? So no matter how joyful or not joyful an event is, or whatever the thing is, it's kind of, I don't know. I just like that phrase of like, so we kind of joke, my husband and I are just like, oh, we got to manage the joy, kind of a little bit of sarcasm in there. But I know that's not really the best piece of advice, but that was kind of just top of mind right now, because I know for myself, we kind of started this whole conversation talking about how busy we all are. And it's been a long road of me learning how to care for myself. And part of that whole like managing the joy is like, how do I nourish my body and keep doing that consistently? How do I protect my mental health? Like, how do I set healthy boundaries? Like all these different things. So it kind of just gets me thinking about what I need while taking care of others, because you have to do both.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. I think it fits the answer. It was actually the answer I had written down. So you got it right. So that's amazing.
Sweet.
So great job there.
A plus.
Yeah, A plus. Question the second. What's one thing that people are generally surprised to find out about you?
Oh, that one's easy. I have a master's degree in oboe performance. So I, for most of my life, was a classical musician. I started piano when I was 5, started oboe. Gosh, how old was I? Maybe 9 or 10 or something. Was a very, like, when I wasn't studying intensely, I was very, like, studious person. I was practicing my oboe and traveling to various orchestra things and all over the place. So every summer I would do, like, music festivals. I was in a really amazing orchestra in my high school career, and I went to Yale because they had a 5-year program with the Yale School of Music. So yeah, I went from kind of my undergrad with, like, majoring in humanities with a focus on art history and a master's in like oboe, right? To then deciding, over 10 years later, or about 10 years later, that I wanted to go back to school to become a sports dietitian, and had to essentially get a second bachelor's degree, but this time in science, and a second master's degree in clinical nutrition. So I've been to a lot of school. And because, masters in oboe performance it turns out very useful in the world, unless you're going to become a musician.
When you initially said that, I was like, oh, she got a master in opera performance. Oh, that's I was like, what? What? Not that. Okay, oboe.
Yes, no. Oboe.
With Oprah.
Yes, oboe.
Okay, got it.
Classical musician. Not Oprah.
You should use the oboe to create content and then talk about sports nutrition with it.
Yeah, it's been on my list for a long time, or it's been my intention to return to music. I was at a very high level, and I just completely walked away from it. Like, was just like drop. I literally got my master's. I was the only person in my program not becoming a professional musician. I just didn't want it anymore. I don't think I ever wanted it. I think it was just handed to me when I was young. And it's like, and actually going back to that piece of advice, I remember I would always get kind of conflicting things from my parents. My dad would always say, don't do something just because you're good at it. And my mom's whole thing was basically like, if you work hard enough, you can do anything, which is like also not true, by the way. But like, I can't. But so I always kind of got these like opposing, or these, because, based, of course, they're like projecting their own shit on me, right? But yeah, the oboe was literally just handed to me. They're like, here you go. You're going to play this. Like the hardest instrument you can possibly make someone play, by the way. Yeah. So yeah, then I got my master's and I was like, okay, done. But I do hope to return to it someday. I think it's just extra hard when you're that serious about something to then just pick it up casually,
That's so interesting.
Well, that was very, I was surprised. I will say that. So that was a great answer. Question the third. What's something you wish more people understood about your industry?
Ooh, first of all, like what a dietitian even is. I will be totally honest. When I was looking into what I wanted to do and I was exploring the world of nutrition, I did not actually know what a dietitian was in my 20s. I had no idea. I'd never heard of a dietitian, hadn't met one, didn't know what they did. And I was like, oh, what's this? And then looked into it and I was like, oh yeah, that's basically what I want to do. So I think a lot of people don't understand the difference between a dietitian and a nutritionist. And so that would be helpful. Also, I think it would be nice if people understood that carbs are necessary. That would be nice.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think most people understand what a dietitian is. You can just find a running coach who's a strength coach who's also a nutrition coach, and that why waste your time a dietitian when I can get someone who do three things at once?
She took one 30-minute class on NASM's website, and she's all of a sudden she's a health coach, or worse, she's just calling herself one because she has a fork. So now she can write you a meal plan because she has a fork that she sometimes knows how to use.
Yeah. I've gotten a lot of clients who unfortunately worked with people like that first.
Yeah.
And then they were like, oh wait, this isn't working.
This is not working. But
oh wait, this unqualified person can't handle my chronic disease. Oh, okay.
But she said she was a gut health expert.
She has 150,000 followers, so she obviously is an expert.
And she knows how to balance my hormones.
She has a 6-pack and she's 27. Okay, well, those aren't credentials. Oh, sorry, we have to get off. Let me get off my soapbox with Nick.
Yeah, we're on a soapbox, but no, you went 3 for 3, so you nailed it 100%. Great.
Yay.
Back to you, Amanda.
Claire, we've identified the website so folks can find you, eatforendurance.com. Mm-hmm. Can you please just share with the folks how else they can find you, and if they want to work with you, how to do so?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm on Instagram, Eat for Endurance. That's how you can find me there. That's where I'm most active. I mean, I'm kind of on Facebook, but just shares there. I don't really do much there. I cannot with TikTok. I'm too old for that shit, so I'm not there. And best place is really just to go to my website, eatforendurance.com, and you'll find all of the information on the services I offer. You'll find the Black Friday sale information there, which you can grab until Friday the 22nd at 11:59 p.m. And I have a podcast, the Eat for Endurance podcast, which I've had it for over 5 years. That's how Amanda and I connected. And I try to put a post or episode out every 2 weeks. I have tons of information. I mean, you pretty much can find everything on there. I wasn't always consistent, so I'm at episode 104, but there's 104 episodes for you to catch up on. So you have plenty of material. And yeah, I'd love to work with you if you want to reach out.
That's awesome. Are you sure you're not going to dominate oboe talk on TikTok?
Obotalk and TikTok.
You
Yeah, no,
literally,
I
like,
think I'm good
you
there.
would probably just have a crazy following just by, I mean, like, this is something you can talk about after, like, offline. I'm happy to do this pro bono with you. Pro oboe.
Pro
oboe.
oboe.
Oh my God.
It's something like, you know, she eats and oboes, and it's just videos of you playing the oboe, and like, and then like you have a snack after, or like you're fueling your oboe, and then that's all it is. Like, you don't even have to talk, Claire. I'm telling you.
You point at words on the
there's
screen,
a
right?
market for this. You can tap on the oboe like those influencers, like,
I don't know,
like with their glasses, they're like that. You could do it like that. That's the quickest way to give me a migraine every time I see that. That's the quickest way. That's the quickest.
Yeah, I think I'm allergic to TikTok. I don't know. I'm holding out as long as possible.
Saying. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. All right, let's. We gotta let her go. So
yes, I gotta go to my apparently sick child now.
Thank you all so much for listening. Thank you, Claire, for being with us, and we hope you enjoyed this episode. We enjoyed this conversation. You can reach out to Nick and I at any time on our Instagram, our Instagrams, or at betweentwocoaches@gmail.com. We will see everyone next time.
Bye.
Bye.